Crossing in Leeds!
This is the Cockpit in Leeds. It's played host to some of the biggest names in the music industry worldwide, including Yorkshire's very own Kaiser Chiefs. However, it is now lying empty and abandoned. Sadly, this is not a one-off. Many venues across Yorkshire have been closing their doors recently, leaving bands little space to develop. I went to Harrogate to meet with George Oliver.
Hey man, how you doing, pal?
Welcome to Hellfire Studios.
Thank you, thanks for having me.
George plays guitar in the wild. I was invited to watch their final rehearsal ahead of a UK tour. They, like many other bands, started by playing small venues, as the cost of hiring a large venue was too much.
Because bigger venues have bigger fees, smaller venues tend to put you on without having to hire the venue and sort of pay a load of money to actually put a show on. So it gives young bands and like bands that are just starting out the opportunity to actually get in front of people and play without having to fork out a load of money to hire a venue.
One way bands can get the experience of playing to a live audience without having the expense of touring is the 360 Club, based at the Library Pub in Leeds. Richard is the founder and promoter there. So Richard, what is the 360 Club?
360 Club, it's a night that's based in Leeds, and all we do is feature local, up-and-coming and emerging acts. That's our primary focus, supporting the live music scene on a local level, with not just live gigs but behind the scenes help, advice, industry mentoring, introductions to industry people, support with media, and hopefully along that way teaching bands how to do those things for themselves.
With many of Yorkshire's legendary venues closing their doors, there is one venue that is bucking the trend. Foo Fighters, Pulp, Arctic Monkeys, they've all got one thing in common. They've played this place, the Sheffield Leadenhall.
So we're not just being a live music and club venue anymore, we're doing things like doing cinema screenings, our monthly comedy club, we're doing corporate events, we're offering the venue up to anybody who wants to hire it, so we're not just kind of limiting ourselves to one kind of event that we can hold here, we're being a multi-purpose venue, and I think that's the way that venues have got to go forward.
It's on stages like this one in Leeds where the Wild and other small bands develop their skills before reaching chart success. But just how important is it? I travelled to Hull to meet BBC Introducing presenter Alan Raw.
And for those bands to get that first gig and be given that opportunity, that's really where that vital bit is for local venues. It's the promoters and the local venues themselves who work on a shoestring. They very, very poorly financed. They manage with the tiniest little amount, and they manage to make an opportunity which is invaluable to local audiences and to the local bands and to those first-time gigs and those people who are looking for something new.
But for bands like The Wild, there is often only so far they can go. So you were saying earlier, before we started recording, about there being almost like a glass ceiling. And can you explain a bit more about that and what you think about that?
When you get to a certain level, it's hard to, I don't know, there's like a bit of a gulf that's like becoming bigger, I think, from the bigger artists and the smaller artists. And the more of these like smaller mid-sized venues close down, the harder that leap is to make. With the Cockpit was perfect. Before the Cockpit closed, it was like it had the 125 cap, the 250 cap, then the 600 cap. And you could play headline shows and support shows realistically in all three of those venues, and you could sort of like build your way up. Now that's gone, Yorkshire's a lot more difficult, I think. Personally, from my experience in this band.
But with venues like the Leadenhall under increasing economic pressure, what can be done to save them and the bands that rely upon them?
The Adelphi in Hull, Brudenell, Leeds, you know, when you've got those kind of venues which have been around for a really, really long time and have done a great service to cultural identity for an area, then really there needs to be a kind of list, like there is for listed buildings, do you know what I mean? There has to be some protection of that cultural asset.
Club nights like the 360 Club have a reputation for developing some of the UK's newest breakthrough acts.
Well, the main one that we're kind of known for really is Alt J, who did their very first gig with me, and virtually every gig bar one or two until they exploded really onto the scene.
But with venues closing down, will we see another band like Alt J in years to come?
If there isn't one from Yorkshire in the next few years, then there's something radically wrong with the music industry, because it's not about the talent. The talent is definitely there.